I accidentally deleted the intro for this video, so this is the new intro. It's totally natural. I know you can thank me in the comments. The character series is back and we're starting with Arietta. Let's go.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. For those unaware, I used to have a series on this channel where I would go through each of my characters that was in a specific story, and I would tell you about them and the world that they lived in and the story and all that fun stuff, and it was a really jazzy time. But that series ended because I just didn't have any more characters that were part of stories or characters that were drawn out enough for me to be able to share with you guys. And this story that I'm talking about, I actually was already working on like developing a more solid concept for it, but by the time that series ended, it wasn't quite ready to share with you guys, but now it is. Arietta, for the longest time, was a character who, first off, I originally made when I was like 14 or something, and then I never really had a place for her, so she just kind of existed. But then after I made Robin, that was when I started to create a story for her, because I decided to put them in the same universe, and then I brought in some other old characters, and now it's a thing. I'm very excited to share it with you guys. I have gotten quite a few more subscribers since I made my last character video. If you're new here, first of all, the original series I called like all about OCs. This one I'm probably just gonna call it like character profiles, which is the name I have now. It might change before this video even goes up. I don't know, but I just wanted to have this two different series like separated from each other. And the general structure of the video, I start off by giving you basic information about the character, and then I talk about the world and like the story. I always go more in depth with the plot in the protagonist video, so that would be this one, because Arietta's the protagonist of this story. And then for the other characters, I just give a brief like recap, and then if there are characters that isn't the protagonist or other main characters and are just more minor characters, they always get lumped into one video. But then after I explain the world, I talk about how that character fits into that story and the role that they play, and then I answer questions from you guys that you asked me on Instagram about the characters. So it's a super fun time, and if you're new here and you have not had a chance to participate in this series yet, I would suggest going over to my Instagram page. That is where I make the posts and gather questions for these videos. So if you want to be in a future video of a character, go over there. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm very excited to bring the series back, so I hope you're excited about it too. So this is Arietta. She does not have a last name currently. Maybe someday she'll have one, but for now she's just Arietta. She is 19 years old. She is a female, and also she's introverted, like very introverted. A lot of people pointed out that she always seems very scared or nervous, and that's because she is. She is very much full of anxiety, and she's constantly unsure about both herself and others, and then also just things around her. She's very anxious and kind of skeptical of everything. More so anxious than skeptical, but skeptical nonetheless. Nonetheless. She has not the highest self-esteem. She definitely doubts herself a lot and her abilities and like the relationships with people in her lives. Those are all for various reasons, which you will soon find out, but basically she's never really been sure or comfortable with anything really, ever. She's also very easily embarrassed, and it's probably due to her overthinking everything. Her mind is always racing. She always makes quick assumptions, not necessarily in a bad way, but just in a very anxiety-full way. She tends to overthink her actions, the actions of other people, the situations that she's in, and that causes her to get flustered fairly easily. But despite all of that, the personal goals that she has throughout the story kind of forces her to venture out into the world and interact with people, because as much as she would love to just hide away from everybody, between her like personality and her fear of just generally everything, she has a much bigger desire to accomplish her goals, and so even if it makes her fairly uncomfortable, she kind of forces herself out of that shell. How do I say this? She does want to be social and like make friends, but she just doesn't know how, because she's full of anxiety. But yeah, that's the gist of her. Those are like the main features of her. She's very anxious and nervous about everything, but in spite of herself, she is on an adventure, basically. And what is that adventure, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. Totally unprompted, and something that you totally said, not me. So a little bit of lore for the world that they live in. Basically, there's a world full of witches, and this world has a history of witches like abusing powers, and even though that is something that's in the more distant past in the world, like that's something that you're more likely to read in a history book than see with your own eyes happening in the present. Witches do still abuse power, and there are some people who are wary of witches. And speaking of the witches, there's a very important characteristic for them. So first of all, you're either born a witch or you're not. It's not something that develops over time. You either have powers or you don't. But also, in order to access their powers within them, they need what I call tools. It's basically just an object that helps them channel their witch powers. Magic? Their stuff. And then depending on what tool they have, did you just hear my voice crack? Oh my god. Tool. Depending on what tool they're using, it can really change like how their powers are activated. Each witch like has a theme to their powers, but how they can use their powers changes depending on what tool they're using at the time. And a witch can use multiple tools, but first of all, being able to use like 2 at once takes a lot more a lot more energy than just using one, so it's not like the most common thing. And also, of course, they have to take the time to learn about it, and they have to get used to the other tool. And within this world in the present, it doesn't have an official name yet, but what I've called it is the International Witches Coalition, which could be an official name. It sounds pretty fucking official. And not all witches are a part of this. A lot of them are. I don't want to say it's super uncommon for a witch to not be a part of it, but most people just assume that if you're a witch, you are a part of this coalition. And there's like different branches of it that they all serve different purposes. Some of them are to stop other witches who are becoming corrupt, which I will explain in a future video, but witches who are becoming corrupt and are abusing their power, there's a section that's dedicated to stopping that. There's also a dedicated section to helping people who are non-witches, and then defending witches from like monsters and creatures and stuff that exists in the world. There's a bunch of different stuff that's needed, but basically that exists in the world. I didn't talk about like the plot really. That was mostly just like the world, but a lot of the plot, or at least like the main overarching, at least like the main overarching story is really revolved around Arietta. So I'm gonna talk about kind of her role in the story and the plot kind of at the same time. So remember when I said that like a witch needs a tool to access their powers? Well, Arietta doesn't, which breaks the one rule of witches. But like, that's kind of the thing with her, is that it's absolutely unheard of for a witch to be able to use their powers without a tool. Which, by the way, people want to know if she has like a theme to her powers. Yes, like I mentioned earlier, all witches have like a theme to them. Like I mentioned, Rhea, another character in here, she has like water-based powers. And I don't really know how to explain Arietta's. It's kind of just like light. I don't know, that's the best way I can explain it, but she has like light-based powers. But a witch being able to use their powers without a tool is absolutely unheard of. It's like it just doesn't happen. And then also Arietta, she didn't grow up with a biological family. She never really grew up with a steady family or like a steady friend group or anything like that. And she doesn't know anything about where she comes from, why she has this super strange ability that nobody else has. And basically the overarching plot in this story is for Arietta to find out why she can do that and where she came from, because holy fucking shit, she's not supposed to be able to do that. In the beginning of the story, Arietta isn't a part of the coalition, but eventually, by eventually I mean pretty much at the start of the story, she ends up joining Robin's little group, which is Robin, Micah, and Jax, and she joins them in hopes of like going on them with their sort of adventures to help her figure out about herself, because with the type of work that Robin's group does, which I'll talk about in their video, they travel a lot of different places, they meet a lot of different people, and so basically Arietta joins them in hopes of finding something about herself and her past. So yeah, when she joins the group, she's very awkward at first because, like I said, she has no idea how to make friends, but eventually she does learn to like incorporate herself into their group and how to get along with them all. And basically she kind of takes on the role of deciding what missions they go on and picking out that sort of stuff. Basically, if there's anything that she thinks could help her, then they go off on that little adventure. Fun! Fun times. That's about all I have for the story for you so far. In each video, I feel like you'll learn at least a little bit more about the world and everything, because each character is in the world in their own way, so there are probably a lot of unanswered questions, but they will be answered at some point. And also, if you do have any questions about like the world or the story that wasn't, like if anything just wasn't clear, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll do my very best to answer them. I don't answer comments that are like spoilery or I felt I already answered in this video, so just keep that in mind before commenting. But now it's arguably the best part of these videos. It's the Q&A section. And now you might be wondering, if you've seen the last series, Oliver, are there going to be the traditional questions? You fucking bet there is. So, what's her zodiac sign? Like most of the characters I have, she doesn't have one. But feel free to comment down any suggestions for her zodiac sign or her birthday, or even just like a month. If you have any ideas, throw them down below. I'll be happy to read them. Maybe someday she'll have a birthday. Does she prefer ice cream cake or cookie cake? Between those two, she would prefer cookie cake, but she likes just like cake. Not a something cake, just a cake. And lastly, use a vine to describe her.
Hi, my name's Derek. Welcome to Pizza Hut. Let me guess, pizza.
So by far the most asked question, is she dating Robin? Is she dating anybody? Does she have a love interest? Is she in love? No. The answer is no. I mean, I did draw them like fairly close, but I don't think I've drawn them in any situations that are explicitly romantic. But I mean, that doesn't stop people from shipping them. You guys know that I don't care, but just know that it's not canon. Does she prefer long or short hugs? Generally, she prefers no hugs, but if she had to pick a type of hug, it'd be short hugs. What was the biggest inspiration for her design? Alternatively, why is her hair so long? So, like I said earlier, Arietta is actually a very old character of mine, and like many young artists, when I first made her, I knew nothing about character design. So she looked a little whack. And so at some point I stopped drawing her because of that, but eventually I did decide to redesign her, and I just mostly wanted to keep the most hello. And then when I did decide to redesign her, I wanted to keep the most identifiable parts of her original design. So much of the silhouette is the same, which is like, she has her two very long pigtails, she has her tall socks, her skirt, her little like detached arm sleeve things. And the reason that all of those exist is just because those were there in her old design. Really, this is just, the reason she looked the way she does now is because it's an improved version of her old design. There's no specific in-lore reason why she has super long hair, she just does. I was also asked if her hair is naturally pink or if it's dyed that way. This takes place in a magical fantasy world, so she was born with pink hair. Is her hair always in pigtails? It is. There's, again, not any real reason for it. The main reason is just because it's the easiest hairstyle for her to do. Because if she's doing her hair herself and she has that much hair, that's like the easiest way she can have it tied back. What is her greatest flaw? I would say it's the conflict between her goals and her personality. She's constantly at like an internal war with herself between like distancing herself from people, distancing herself from people in the world, and finding out who she is and where she came from. And so there's a lot of struggles within her of like being within her comfort level and feeling safe and secure, and then like finding out who she is and why she has this incredibly strange power. So yeah, she's kind of always stressed, but it's fine. If presented with a sheep, would she press her face into the wool, or would she just pet it? She could probably just pet it, but it would be very awkwardly and in a very shy way. She'd be petting it, she'd touch the wool very lightly, but then the rest of her body would be leaning back the other way. What is her opinion on the people around her? So I mentioned a bunch of other characters that are in this world, but I'll focus on the three that she's interacting with on a daily basis, which is Robin, Jax, and Micah. Robin, she's kind of intimidated by and a little overwhelmed by her. I'll talk more about Robin's personality in her video, but a lot of people can gather that like on the surface, she seems kind of stuck up and kind of like snobby in a way, and that's something that Arietta kind of gets a little nervous nervous by. Jax, she tends to be a little scared of. Jax kind of has resting bitch face, and it can kind of be, I guess, intimidating. I already used that word for Robin, but it's okay. It's okay. So she kind of tends to be a little wary around Jax, at least at first. And then Micah is kind of the ray of sunshine of the group. And so between all of them, she would feel most comfortable around him, but she's still very unsure and doesn't understand why he's nice to her. But like I said, she does end up like getting more comfortable around all of them, and they become like a little group, a quartet. Is that the word? A little group of 4. If she played an instrument, what would it be? Flute. I don't know why. As soon as I read that question, the first thing that came to mind was flute, and I tried picturing her playing any other instrument, and none of them fit. For the record, it's not canon, she doesn't play a flute, but if she did play an instrument, it would be a flute. How does she not trip on her hair? Bold of you to assume she doesn't trip on her hair. What is her biggest concern with her friends? Like, for example, abandonment. Mostly that they don't like her. She's always worried that they don't actually like her and that they have like some sort of ulterior motive for interacting with her on a daily basis, and that's on low self-esteem. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a specific word for that, but she just is constantly afraid that they actually secretly hate her. Which, spoiler alert, they don't. Would she ever cut her hair? Probably not. Obviously she does have like bangs and like those 2 pieces on the side of her face. That's the extent of her hair cutting experience. But her hair, what the fuck did I... Okay. Her long hair has been like the one constant thing in her life. And so it's kind of like a comfort for her, I guess. So she probably would never cut her hair. I'm not gonna say never. But she probably won't. Like 98% likely that she will not cut her hair. How tall is she? None of these characters have exact heights, but if I had to guess for Arietta, she would be roughly 5 feet tall. She's not very big. She's very small and petite. Does she let Robin play with her hair? Robin doesn't play with her hair, but sometimes she'll help her do her hair. Like I said earlier, pigtails are the easiest style for her to do, but sometimes Robin will take the time to braid all of it just to make it easier for her to deal with. What's her relationship with her family? Like I said, she doesn't really know her biological family, and for all of the different people that she grew up around, she's now very distant from all of them. She's kind of alone. It's sad. But it's fine. It's fine. I mean, are you a writer if you don't make your characters suffer? And lastly, would she help a little bird if it was injured, or would she be afraid of it? Honestly, both. She would definitely want to help the bird, and she would help the bird, but she would be very nervous. She'd be very worried about whether or not she's actually helping the bird. She wouldn't really know how to help the bird, but then also she would be too anxious to actually find someone who knows how to help the bird, so she'll just try her best. And we did it! Those are all of the questions. If you have any more questions that you'd like me to answer, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Aside from the same disclaimer of me not answering spoilery stuff, I always like to linger in the comment section after these videos are posted to answer more fun questions like these, so go down there if you want them answered. Maybe I'll answer them, who knows? But that's about all I have for you in this video, and I am very excited to be doing these again. And I know a lot of you guys are excited too. A lot of you guys have been waiting for these videos in particular, when we learn about Arietta and her group, so give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you're excited to hear more. Next month's character is Robin, so stay tuned. And again, head over to Instagram if you want to ask some questions about Robin, because your question might be in this video. It's a fun time. And if you are new here, hello, my name is Oliver. This might be a kind of strange video for you to watch if it's the first one, but if it is the first one, I post a lot of my art on this channel. I draw a lot, I talk about my characters a lot. It's a fun time, so if you could stick around, I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to follow me on social media, those will be on screen now and linked in the description box below. Again, follow me on Instagram, that's the best place. And there will also be some videos on screen now and linked in the iCard for you to check out if you want to see more from me. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye!